Do you ever find yourself thinking about the past, just plain lost in thought in a weary state of nostalgia? I mean, what do you think about? Your childhood home, vacations, your favorite foods? Well, I tend to think about Lego, specifically the Lego themes of my childhood. Now, because of this constant and consistent nostalgic thought process, I thought it would be a fun idea to go back and take a look at the Lego sets from my past. You know, the ones that I'd see on that Toys R Us shelf as a kid. With that being said, this is my new series, Bricks of Nostalgia. Now, I thought a good first theme for us to take a look at would be Exo-Force, which is a very notorious LEGO theme. This LEGO theme originally started in 2006. It had 3 waves of sets to its name, I believe, and we're just going to go through and kind of take a look at these sets chronologically, look at them one by one, not spending too long on them. The ones that I have a nostalgic connection to, the ones that I remember from my childhood, I will likely spend more time on. So this first one here is set 7700. It's called the Stealth Hunter. This is one of those mechs that I would see all the time on the shelves as a kid, and you'll notice as we go through these Exo-Force sets, these mechs look really cool. They look really cool. I think these are some of the best mechs that LEGO ever produced, and these full-size mechs, I guess you could call them, originally retailed for $15 a piece, and this one right here has 164 pieces. Really good deal for back then. I mean, you look at this right now, and this would probably be $25, $30 with today's prices. They also had these like light tubes going through them, and they were kind of like the original prototype for the light bricks, which would attach to these tubes and go through and kind of light up their weapons. They didn't work too well. If I recall, they didn't work too well at all, but this was a good looking mech overall. The next one we'll take a look at, this is one that I actually have a very nostalgic connection to because one of my siblings owned this one when I was growing up and I was always really jealous of it. This one is the Grand Titan set 7701. This one also retailed for $15, had 196 pieces, so almost reaching that 200 piece mark. Same thing here, it had that light tube. All of the light tubes were red. They emitted a red light, whereas the weapon here was green, so I remember it was kind of bizarre. But there were a lot of pieces that were in these sets that were very large and very specific to the set. If you look at those claw pieces on his right arm, those, as far as I'm concerned, were kind of specific to Exo-Force. The shoulder pads, the knee pads, all that sort of stuff. Very big pieces for sets, lots of stickers too, so the value overall was just really exceptional. The next one we have on our list is the first bad guy mech, I guess you could call it. It is 7702, the Thunder Fury. The bad guys in the Exo-Force line, the antagonists, I guess you could say, were these awesome drone minifigures, which were specific to Exo-Force. I still have a couple of these laying around in my minifigure collection, and I still really love them. This one right here included the silver drone. It was a really interesting mech build. The torso was very wide. I never got my hands on this one, never really got to see it in person, but overall it's a very interesting build. Next we have another antagonist mech. This is the Fire Vulture set 7703. Again, these are all still retailing for $15 in the US. The same minifigure in this one, and I think that was kind of one of the issues that Exo-Force had for the mechs on the antagonist side. The color scheme for the drone mechs were all very similar, they're very dark shades, and the minifigures didn't really vary, and I think that's one thing that was a disadvantage for the Exo-Force theme, is that the antagonist side, those minifigures were all kind of the same. You had bronze drones, you had silver drones, and then you had another color, which we'll talk about later, but the Exo-Force characters on the hero side, they varied a whole lot and they were interesting. These ones, not so much. This mech though, not really much to say here. It's somewhat interesting. I like the big fan on the back, or booster, whatever you want to call it, but overall, not too fantastic. And this is our first non-mech set, which is called the Sonic Phantom set 7704. This was kind of a flying ship. This one retailed for $20 at the time. The most interesting part about this one, I would say, is that it uses those rubber bullet pieces. I remember those from back in the Aqua Raiders sets. They're being used here as well. Again, with the silver drone, those silver drones seem to be the most populous throughout these sets. This one, I don't really have too much to say about it. Some big pieces in it with those turbines. Other than that, though, I don't think this is the most interesting one that Exo-Force had at its disposal. Now here's a really interesting set. This was set 7705, the Gate Assault. This one was a mere $30 back in the day, and I remember seeing this one on the shelves as a kid, and I thought that must have been like a massive set. It just looked big to me, and I think part of that is due to the box art. The box art depicts this massive mountain in the background, this big bridge, but really what you're getting here, you're getting this gate, which isn't too substantial in size. You're getting 2 small mechs, and you're getting a vehicle. But if you were to divvy it up by price, honestly, this is a really good deal. 402 pieces, so for $30, even back then, that was a really good deal. Today's standards, that'd be an excellent deal. Here's another one that I somehow just remember being a lot larger than it actually is back in the day. This was the Mobile Defense Tank set 7706. This one was only $30, and somehow I look at this and I'm like, that's got to be like a $50, $60 set, and in today's standards it probably would be. But even back then as a kid, I would see this on the Toys R Us shelf and I'd be like, man, that is a massive set. That's got to be huge. This set did have some transformative features. You could kind of bend the treads up to raise the whole tank. Overall, this one looks really interesting. Lots of things, lots of projectiles that can be fired off here. You've got the discs, you've got the missiles, lots of cool stuff going on with that. All right, this is the big one in Wave 1 of the Exo-Force sets. This is the one I really wanted to talk about. Set 7707, the Striking Venom. This right here is the pinnacle of big Exo-Force set in my head, because I would have been probably 7-8 years old when this was sitting on store shelves, and I still remember seeing it and being like, oh my gosh, that thing is huge. That must be like a UCS level set. And it's not. In reality, this was only $50, 646 pieces, but somehow that box art and the way it just looked on the box, it just looks absolutely massive. The most important thing with this set, I would say, and as a kid it was just so desirable, was that golden drone figure, the leader drone. I'm not sure what his actual name was, but that was just so desirable to me as a kid, and I thought it was so cool that this set had that figure. This one right here, 7707 Uplink, this is another one that is super nostalgic for me. This is one of the smaller mechs, and when I look at this, I see, a $10, $11 set maybe. Back in the day, this was $5, which is insane, because now just one minifigure that you buy off the shelves would be $5. This one was $5 back in the day on its own. It was a really well put together mech. I mean, you look at this, it's got these massive shoulder pad pieces, which are specific to Exo-Force. You've got some stickers, some decals throughout, a cool looking minifigure. You've got everything you need as a kid. For $5, this is awesome. Now, when we're talking about big Exo-Force sets, obviously the Striking Venom is a big one. This is the big one, though. This is the Cai Fortress 7707, was $100 back in the day. And when I look at this, I actually see, in today's standards, this would probably be $150, maybe $200, because there's a lot going on here. You've got 2 mechs, 1 mini mech. This gate looks absolutely massive. It looks absolutely massive. And I'll tell you what, there were 1,448 pieces here, which was almost unheard of for certain themes back then. Like, this is a huge set. And this is, I believe, the last one of Wave 1. This one is just called Sentury, set 7711. I did own this one back in the day. This was my first ever Exo-Force set that was mine, not one of my siblings that owned it. I have fond memories of this one. I still have the bronze droid figure moving around somewhere in my collection. I absolutely love this set just for nostalgia's sake, and this series is all about nostalgia. This is a set that I have absolute nostalgic connection to. A really good looking mech, in my opinion. It just looks awesome. Now we're moving on to what I believe is part of the second wave of Exo-Force sets. This is Supernova, set 7712. I never really got my hands on any of the second wave Exo-Force sets, but this one right here I think just looks awesome. And this is no longer a $15 mech. They raised the price to $20 for this wave, which makes sense because there's a lot more going on here. Just the aesthetics overall for this thing, it just looks fantastic. I mean, there's not much else to say. It has its own weapon now as well. They don't have the weapons built into the mech. The mech is actually physically holding the weapons, which I think is super cool. And then another big $50 set. This one is called Bridgewalker and White Lightning, set 7713. This one is another one that has the golden drone in it. When I look at this though, and it's $50, so the same amount as the Striking Venom, and I think this is overall a better set because it does include something for the mech to fight, and the mech actually looks pretty cool, but somehow the Striking Venom just seems so much more massive to me and so much more worth $50, even though this, I mean, there's a lot going on here, a lot of cool stuff happening here. This next one is called the Golden Guardian. I love the way this thing looks, and I remember seeing this one on store shelves, and I always wanted it, never got around to getting it. I think the thing I like the most about this is all of the gold going on in this, and as a kid, and I'm sure a lot of people can vouch for it, we loved gold Lego stuff. Gold Lego pieces, those gold bar pieces were so desirable, gold crystal pieces, everything gold was so awesome as a kid. And this set, it had a fair amount of gold accenting the mech, so I think it was super desirable. That big gold cannon piece right there was just so cool looking. And right here we have another $50 one. This one was called the Combat Crawler X2. It's at 7721. I feel like this might have been like a store exclusive set because I don't remember ever seeing it on shelves, but it's a really interesting looking thing. I'm not sure if I'd entirely like how it looks. It actually could split off into two components though. So that middle portion right there, that yellow looking thing, could actually split off into its own mech. This is the first $50 set from Exo-Force though that does not have that golden drone in it, which I think is the most desirable part about those sets. You also have the bullets going on here, so lots of playability happening. And then we come back to the smaller mechs, now raised to the price of $8, which I think is perfectly fair, but $5 was probably too good to be true. This one is called the Cyclone Defender, set 8100. It's pretty good looking. I don't really have too much to say about this. I feel like with a lot of the mechs, this is probably one of the more bland looking mechs. I still like it, but it's not too desirable for me in my opinion. And then another small mech for the wave. This one is called the Claw Crusher. Again, $8 here. An enemy mech has a silver drone inside of it, big claw on it. Again, not too much going on here. I don't have too many memories associated with this one, but it's still a really cool looking set. And it looks like we have a couple more big mechs, and we're going back to the guy with the green hair in this one as well. This one was called the Blade Titan, set 8102. This is a really cool one. I like the color scheme on this. I feel like at some point I might have held this as a kid. I don't remember when that would have happened, but I do think this is a cool mech. I don't have too much to say about this one. The design is just really awesome. This is another really good looking one. This is called the Sky Guardian, set 8103. And this actually goes back to the $15 price point as well as the previous one. 144 pieces in this one, so not too bad in terms of value. This right here is the Shadow Crawler, a $15 mech from the bad guy side. Not really a mech though, it's more of like a spider build. The interesting part about this one, I would say, is that it included a skeleton figure, which was kind of in the egg sack in the back, which is kind of interesting for a line like this. I don't really know what the designers were thinking there, but I can't say that I hate it. It had some discs that could be fired off as well. Just a really cool looking mech overall. Not too desirable for me though. I don't have too many memories associated with this one. I really like the look of this one, I'll be honest. This one was $15 as well, not too many pieces, 141 pieces it looks like. It was called the Iron Condor, set 8105. I just really love the wings coming off of this thing. It looks really interesting. I do wish there was a little bit more armor buildup going about it though, but the wings that are kind of flying off looks really awesome. And this is one that I feel the need to talk about because I think it's super bizarre. This is called the AEL Booster, set 8106. This thing, its signature look, it's super interesting. It has like 3 massive thrusters on the back of this tiny little mech. This was a $30 set as well. The designer must have gone pretty crazy with this one, and I remember seeing this on store shelves as well and thinking, wow, that looks really interesting, but I never really wanted it as a kid. We've got another $50 set here. This one is called the Fight for the Golden Tower, again with the golden theme. I love the golden pieces in these sets. It just makes the set so much more desirable. The interesting part to me about this set is that there were only 2 minifigures in this one, and I feel like there should have been more, especially for a $50 set. There really wasn't too much going on in this one. The design of the building, though, does look pretty cool. The jet, the flying vehicle, whatever you want to call it, I could give or take with that one. All right, now this one right here, this is another one that was like the pinnacle of a set as a kid for me. I would see this one on the shelves and be like, that is huge, that looks awesome. This one was $90 back in the day. It had 1,009 pieces, so actually pretty massive for a set back in 2007 is when it came out. Really interesting design here. Those green wheels really stand out. They're massive. They're specific to this set as far as I'm concerned. They might have been reused for themes later on. I feel like Power Miners might have used that piece at some point. Really interesting set though, lots going on. Alright, now we've got the final wave of Exo-Force sets here. This wave, they kind of went with like a jungle theme, which I thought was super interesting. I remember these very well when I was a kid. I remember seeing them in the Lego catalogs. I wanted a whole lot of them. I only ever got 2 of them, I believe. Starting off right here though, this one is called the River Dragon set 8111. The really cool part about each of these sets, and I think there were 5 or 6 of them, is that each one had its own drone that kind of came off. So you see on the arm of this one, there's a drone that comes off and is detachable, and there's a drone in every single set that can come off. They've got their own little buddies that can come off of their mechs, which is really fun. This overall is a pretty good looking mech. Not a whole lot of posability here though. There's no knee joints or anything like that. I think in terms of all the Exo-Force mechs that have been around, this one is kind of a fumble to me. I still like it though. The next one we have here is called the Arachnoid Stalker, and I guess you could call this a mini mech. It just doesn't really strike mech for me though, and this was kind of a spider themed antagonist vehicle. And again, this one also had a drone that could come off with that little spidery skeleton head thing. I don't know what was going on with that. I did own this one right here though. I had this one as a kid. I liked it. It was a pretty okay set. Wasn't the most excellent looking thing looking back, but still a pretty awesome set to have. This one is called the Assault Tiger, set 8113. This was a $15 mech with about 163 pieces. This one had a red drone that could pop off of the arm. You can see it right there. Again, not the best looking mech ever. I don't know if I'm a huge fan of the cockpit, but I kind of love the massive legs. It really gives this thing character. Overall, this is actually, it's a pretty good looking mech. It's not too bad. This one might have actually been one of my favorite mechs from this wave. This was the Chameleon Hunter, set 8114. This one also a $15 mech with 188 pieces. It had its own little drone with those swords that could pop off as well. I just like how kind of slick and skinny this mech is. It looks very, very agile. It kind of reminds me of Greninja a little bit, and I don't know if I'm wrong in that in my head. It just feels like that to me. I like that it has like one big claw in one hand and the other hand has a flamethrower as well as the detachable drone. This was a really cool looking mech though. Now this one right here, the Dark Panther set 8115, I owned this one. I had it in my collection, 244 pieces for 15 bucks. Absolutely incredible in terms of value here. I really loved this set when I was a kid, and I almost want to order a sealed copy from eBay just so I can build it again, but that would probably set me back a good $80, $90 or so. I really like this set. Again, it has a detachable drone in the form of a spider. Just a really awesome set to me, and I just had loads of fun with it when I was a kid. Now this is another one that was, I guess, misleading to me when I was a child, because I would see this in the LEGO catalogs, and for some reason these massive wings and just the scope of this model just made this thing look absolutely massive in my head. I thought this must have been like a $50 set. This thing was only $20 though, which is crazy to me. Only 283 pieces. Something about it though, something about the way they have it posed on the box just really makes it seem massive to me. It had its own drone as well. I think this was a pretty cool looking thing. It definitely would have been repetitive to build, but overall it's not too bad. Nothing too special about it. Here we have the Hybrid Rescue Tank set 8118. This was a $30 set with 347 pieces. This was a good guy vehicle with the leader of the protagonists of Exo-Force. Again, it had a detachable drone. I think that these bigger sets, and I hesitate to call this one bigger, but I think that they suffer because they don't really have something to fight against. You've got to get multiple of the sets to have them fight against each other. This was still a decent looking tank. I think that Exo-Force really benefits more when they make mechs though. And that's just it. That's the whole Exo-Force theme. That's all the sets. We've gone through all of them now. They kind of fumbled in that last wave, and I almost think that they stopped selling as many sets during that last wave, and that's kind of why they only produced, 7 sets in that last wave. That's decent, but none of them were over $30, which is crazy to me. Overall, though, I absolutely love Exo-Force. I love what they were doing with the theme. The amount of interesting mechs that this theme produced is just absolutely amazing, and as I look back through them, I love to see it. I mean, there were so many interesting designs with this theme. But I hope you guys enjoyed my look back at LEGO Exo-Force. If you did, make sure to leave a like on this video, subscribe if you want to see more, and comment down below which theme you'd like me to take a look at next, maybe a theme from your childhood. Thank you guys, I will see you in the next one. Bye-bye.